Um, I'll call the meeting to order.
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
I guess I don't think there's anyone else here except people on the commission. So is there any business anyone would like to bring up while we have a few minutes?
And
Yeah,
Reed Willis is here too. So just so.
Oh, hi, Reed.
yeah, I have one thing I would like to bring up. My term ends on June 30th, and having given it an awful lot of thought, but after 8 terms and 32 years, I've decided to not put in for another term. So you'll need to find a new person to take my place. And I've just kind of run out of steam, and I think you need a younger, more energetic person than I am at this point.
Carl, it's a
Sorry to hear that, Carl.
well-deserved break, and we'll miss you.
Well,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Carl, you've made
Dude.
a lot of contributions over the last, how many years?
Decades,
40,
2
30
years.
years.
32.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
No,
Well, I'll miss
don't
you
feel
all.
bad about it for a second.
It's a great ride.
You can come visit time
Probably
to time.
I probably will.
Thank you. And you always do find the one thing everyone else has missed when we go over certain things. So thank you for that. Reed Willis, did you have any comment?
I don't. Thank you for asking, but no, nothing special.
Okay, thank you, Reed. So we did not have a quorum in our last meeting, so we're gonna go over the meetings of April 6th before we go over the meetings of April 20th.
Okay. So, okay.
So I had a question on the Summerfield subdivision. The 2 bullet points there. As the wetlands are depicted as a sketch plan, not a delineation. Did we, I wasn't here last time, but did we resolve that question? Is it a delineation or is it?
Yes,
just
yeah,
a
it is. It is a delineation, and the confusion arose because the way that they do the wetland report, the actual illustrations provided in the report are not an actual delineation. They're just a representation of the delineation. So that was the nature of the confusion. But yes, the delineation, the report stated that a delineation had been done, and that it was confirmed by the State Wetlands Office at that site visit.
Okay.
And that was confirmed by the applicant, by the applicant's engineer.
And
So,
so what the applicant put on the site plan was a delineation. It wasn't just those sketch.
yeah, it did represent the delineation. So,
Okay, good.
yeah.
I have a question about the trapping thing. Has it gone to the select board yet?
It hasn't gone to the select board yet. It was, yeah, I'm not sure when it will be brought to the select board, but I'll let you all know in case you want to go to the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just a reminder that Eric had sent around the Streamwise program video that someone had presented from the Lake Champlain Basin program. So if anyone's interested, they could take a look at that. Is there any other comments, or do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Eric. Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Does anyone abstain?
That would be me, Laura. I wasn't there.
Okay, thanks, Reed. All right, we can move on to the April 20th minutes.
So I guess I have a question. I was not at this meeting. I just have a question about the summer field. I went back and looked at the recording of the meeting. And so there's a lot of talk about, different units that are too close to the buffer and, people are going to be out there. So I guess I just have never heard, how is the development going to get property managed, mowed and things? Are they high, or is that part of a agreement with the owner, the owners of the whole development, that they go and they're actually doing the mowing and the maintenance, and the individuals don't have that responsibility?
So yeah, so there's an association that's going to be formed, and as part of the development approval, the developers will need to submit covenants for that HOA, and the HOA will take care of all of the maintenance of the common areas. That's not to say, I mean, our experience has shown that individual homeowners do, there's nothing to prevent them. I mean, what can I say?
Just because the HOA is maintaining it doesn't mean
Yes.
that a resident isn't going to go out and cut something. So
Right. Yeah.
So there could be multiple lawnmowers there.
There
buzzing
could,
around.
there could very well be
Weed whackers,
people
okay.
who, and our experience has shown that people generally want a little bit of lawn space around their unit. So if the unit is pushed up against the buffer, it usually ends up impacting the buffer itself. So that's why the commission recommended giving some space between the actual structures and the buffer to allow room for mowing around the structure.
And it sounds like they're going to use boulders as that buffer delineation.
That we don't know yet what, but that's, and it can be either a fence or boulders. And I think your recommendations included like putting some signage, either, I guess if it was a fence, it would make sense to put up signage along the fence explaining the purpose of the buffer and, why the fence is there, and that the fence, delineates the buffer, and, just to stay out of the buffer, just as a way of educating future residents.
Okay, thanks.
one other comment on that, Laura. And that is that there are, I believe, a few lots that are not going to be part of the association. If my memory serves me, weren't there a few that were going to be single
On their own.
family lots on their own, not part of the HOA.
I'm not sure whether they're still part of the HOA or not, but you're right that they're on their own lots. So presumably they can do whatever they want on those lots, and the lots wouldn't be considered common space. Yeah,
So we
and
did-
there was
we did
one,
talk about that too.
yeah. There was one lot that was partially encroaching into a wetland buffer, and we recommended that that be pushed out of the buffer entirely, so that, you know, that the person who owns it doesn't think that they can go in and mow because they own it. It doesn't really make any sense to have the lot in the buffer.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point, Reed.
Melinda, I have one question on procedure. Since we didn't have a quorum, we didn't have approved findings and recommendations, at least not in the minutes
Yeah.
here. And yet I looked at the DRB draft minutes from their next meeting where they discussed this, and somehow you managed to get our thoughts in there. How did that come about? And
Mhm.
also, it looks like they did approve the whole thing with a lot of conditions.
Yeah,
Maybe-
so yeah, I guess because the commission is an advisory board, we were able to send on your comments, you know, with a note that you didn't, you know, that you didn't have quorum, but you know, that these had been discussed by the members in attendance, and, you know, and approved by the members in attendance. So, you know, they can still, the DRB can still take those comments under consideration, and did.
Yeah.
Um,
they did.
Yeah.
Good. Glad you got them in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I discussed it with Matt, and, you know, he was of the mind that, you know, yeah, it is always a little bit stronger when there is a quorum present and you vote on the recommendations, but that the recommendations can still be passed on regardless.
Mhm.
So.
I'll move approval of the minutes from, well, what date is this?
April 20th.
I'll
April
second.
20th.
Do we have enough people to approve them since there wasn't a quorum? Like, can we all still vote if those of us who were not there?
You could certainly still vote. I mean, I think people have chosen to abstain when they weren't present, but just because you weren't present, you can still vote to approve the minutes.
All right, I'll second.
So if this, but I mean, that makes sense, but if there wasn't a quorum at the meeting, can it be recorded as an official meeting?
I believe you still can record it as an official meeting, I guess. I mean, technically, yeah, because there wasn't a quorum.
There weren't any votes. So there was discussion, but no votes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
tricky.
It's a matter of, it's a historical record nonetheless. And
Mhm.
I've always understood you can do, it's an official meeting, just no actions taken.
Mhm.
Okay. Yep.
All right, do I hear a second? Oh, Kim seconded, sorry. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Does any,
Aye.
thank you. Does anyone abstain?
I guess I'll abstain since I wasn't there and I
Okay.
haven't really looked at much.
Okay, So, but we have a quorum to approve. So the minutes of April 20th have been approved. Thank you, Melinda.
So was that 6 ayes and 1 abstention? Am I hearing that right? Just want to make sure I get that right. Or were there more abstentions?
I did vote. I don't know why, but I thought I eyed, so I it is for me.
Okay,
Mary abstained.
Right, yeah.
all right. Cool. Let's see. Get rid of that.
And is Chapin coming to present on the Tree Island?
I see that Chapin's here.
Oh, great. Hi, Chapin.
Hi,
Nice
how
to
are
see
you
you.
all? Good to see you all.
This, reading through your documents and the background information, it's really impressive, Chapin.
Thanks. Melinda asked me to share about this Tree Island Forest Park idea and other projects. And I put together a slideshow to help with that. So if it's okay, shall I go through that?
That would be
Yeah,
great.
let me just give you permissions here. Okay. And then I'll stop sharing.
There we go. So this idea of first of all, I wanted to make sure you're oriented to where this is. This is the wonderful multi-layered map that Melinda created for the Taft Corners project, and I like it for a number of reasons, and so I'm using it to zoom in. You can see Taft Corners, Williston Road, Mountain View up here, and as we zoom in, you'll see the fire station in the middle. So this is the fire station here, and this is Allenbrook School here. And the area I'm talking about is between the two and actually extends onto land that is part of the Cirque Highway right-of-way. If I zoom a little farther, you might be able to see that this Moan area is where the Vermont gas line goes through in that property. So riparian plantings were done in this area that I'm outlining behind the fire station and onto the other side in 2009 and 2011, or in those years. And to sort of give a little bit of background, this idea hatched from a combination of when Lynn Blevins and Deb Muccio came to you in January last year, asking where we could plant trees, and they were pointed to the beaver damage section of Allenbrook riparian plantings here where I'm pointing with my arrow right now. And we did some work there and we did some analysis there, but then I've been involved with the Four Winds nature program at the schools for 7 years now, 8 years maybe. And so I'm on this piece of property over here a lot. And there's a trail down here to the brook that we'd use when we do the springtime. We look at caddisfly and mayfly larvae in the brook and so forth. So I was actually last May, a year ago May, doing the introduction to incoming kindergarten families. And I had a break and I walked through here and I saw, this is during COVID, how much some of the kindergartens were using this land with stump circles. And the whole idea of making this into a hardwood northern forest primarily appealed to me because as a nature program teacher, we didn't have nut trees around the school. We didn't have a lot of the wildlife that we could benefit from. And realizing as a planning commission member what's coming to the west of here with the Taft Corners development, this is a pretty precious natural area. And I wanted to make sure we didn't lose its natural, but also that we made it available appropriately for use. So the kindergarten teachers are Adam Dio, Laura Dyer, and Sarah Reed, and they've been using it a lot. I made a proposal last May to the school administrators who connected me with those kindergarten teachers. And during the rest of 2021, basically developed the document that you saw. That's as of January, that background document. We're actually able to begin implementing it in last fall, and I'll show you why in a minute. The budget for this has been $0. All labor and materials have been donated, and we're sort of continuing along that line. Everything I've done has been in communication with Melinda. And basically this is town-owned land, and then this part over here is Department of Transportation owned, and this part up here is school-owned. Basically, nobody is opposed to doing the things that we've been doing, so it's been kind of smooth sailing. So to go through some pictures, I have to go back to the beginning. Sorry. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give a little bit of history of where I'm coming from. This is a picture from 1977 of a sugar maple tree here that's about 8 or 10 feet tall that I transplanted in 1977 to that location. And oh, I see my
It looks like Westford.
it's in Westford. This is that same sugar maple the following summer when it's leaved out. Is being pointed to you by a rainbow. The previous picture was taken standing on top of that rock, looking down at that tree. That rock is important for the next view because you'll see there's another sugar maple right here. And there's no other sugar maples around that rock. So 77, 78, and then in 79, 80, I planted trees around that rock. So the next pictures are going to be taken of that tree and then from that tree more recently. So this is last summer, that very tree, after 40 some years. And this right here, I'm sitting on that rock, which has fallen over. This is taken from that tree looking back. And this is that little tree that was in the foreground of the previous picture. And these are two subsequently planted either side of that rock. So it's this background that has me saying, oh yeah, we can make a forest. And also thinking about it'd be really nice to have a demonstration sugaring operation there. I was a commercial sugar maker at the time in Westford. So this is just this April at that land in Westford, which I still own. These small stems that are like 8 to 10 feet tall in the foreground, and some that are smaller, are all sugar maples, begging to be transplanted to this location here. I showed this picture just because right here, again, the fire station is just out of view to the south, and the school, this is the school access driveway. This is a grove of sumac. And so a couple of us, this is all in April this year, Sustainable Williston volunteers went out, and you can see we've uprooted some sugar maple saplings, loaded them on the truck at the sugar house. And meanwhile, this is Deb Muccio, who was one of the people that came to a year ago. Other people were digging holes in that sumac grove. And here's some more people working on it. And this is one of those saplings here. And that day we transplanted 11 saplings from Westford. The following week, we went up in sugar bush of the Johnson farm, which is on Yance Hill in Williston, way up in the woods. And these are volunteers again. And we dug some sugar maples there. You can see them in a sled here, and brought them on a truck again. And this is the crew that planted them. I don't have any pictures of these people planting, but this was the next weekend we planted 10 from the Yance Hill sugar bush. This is that grove of sumac last fall, and this is what it looks like right now. We didn't take out any sumac, but you can see in this picture there's occasional colorful things, which are the staking of these trees. The advantage of transplanting sugar maples this size is that the deer can't browse them and the rabbits don't like their bark. Still in April, I went out to Catamount with permission from the Catamount folks to this wolf white oak tree. And I discovered that I wanted to transplant some of the saplings around that tree, but I discovered most of them looked like this. There's significant rabbit and deer browse in that area, and pretty much all, there are plenty of offspring from that wolf tree, but all the small saplings are very badly eaten. So I wound up taking some that are just in this bucket. I actually took 7 small, not more than 2 feet high at the most. And here they are planted on the south side of the knoll that we call Tree Island because we're at the northern edge of the range for white oak. You can see tubes through here. I basically have been using, these are reused tubes from the riparian plantings. Some of them were so stunted that you can't put a tube around them. So you can see this is heavily browsed white oak, but the root was significant, so I went ahead and planted it. So how did I come up with this, where to plant what? And that's, this plan is prompting me to come over here. So there's areas, I took the riparian area that had been planted in 2009 to 2011 and called that area 1. And then I made other areas. And most of what I've been doing lately is in what's called area 3, northern hardwood forest. And what I'm doing is taking the natural succession of abandoned pasture back to what it was before it was made into pasture, but with a little more, because we have a chance to do a selection of variety of northern hardwoods. To get to that plan, I engaged with the community, not just the school community. In the orange hat here is Ethan Tapper, our county forester, who led us on a walk around the property in last November. And these are Sustainable Williston people plus kindergarten teachers and school people that were interested. This is at the top of the knoll, gives you a feeling of the vista from that location. Melinda's here. This is Ethan in the orange hat, and these 3 people around him are kindergarten teachers. And there's other community members here. By the way, this sumac behind this kindergarten teacher, Adam Dio, is that sumac grove that I just showed you. As we were walking around, we were collecting plastic sleeves that had fallen off or were impairing the plantings in the riparian area. I'd also like to just orient you to this location from where we were just standing with that group. If you look northwest, this is Mount Mansfield, and this here is school property, and actually is a location where I'm going to suggest we do a pollinator garden in a later note. This is the solar tracker behind the trees of the school. Looking east, you see Bolton Mountain, and these 2 pine trees are the start of the Southridge property, and this mown area is the path of the gas pipeline. This is looking a little bit further south to Church Hill and Yance Hill. So the village is right up there and Yance Hill is beyond. The next slide is going to be from the bottom of this area down here, looking back up at the knoll. This is deep into the V-Trans land, in fact, right at the edge of V-Trans and Southridge. I walked that with Southridge residents, and we sort of talked about ways to engage that community with this. You can see the poison parsnip makes a good lattice for the grape. Plenty of Joe Pye weed. And then I included this picture of the brook in that area because over here, this is sunchoke or Jerusalem artichoke, which is probably a vestige of Native American use of this land. And as you know, and was in the introduction of that document, the Native Americans were on that land 10,500 years ago. The Jerusalem artichoke is from a much more recent period. Danielle Doucette, who's a Southridge resident. These are the stump circles that the teachers the kindergarten teachers were using. And this is the nature trail that is existing on the property. This is a picture taken from behind that sign just to show its relation to the school and the driveway access to the school. This is a de facto trail that area residents use to walk their dogs, mostly off leash and so forth. This is along the top of the knoll where that trail runs. There's plenty of native succession. We saw the sumac, here's nannyberry, but there also is plenty of invasive succession happening. I enlisted Reed to help last fall. We took out a bunch of buckthorn. Here he is with an electric chainsaw. I got my license to stump treat along with Laura last year, and so I stump treated all the buckthorn we cut in the fall. We also used the town's weed wrench to take up the smaller plants and hung them up in the trees. I subsequently loosened a whole lot of that small buckthorn, and the kindergartners helped pull it up. It's hard to tell on this, but these are the ones you just saw, and there's a whole bunch hanging on this side that the students did. These box elders are also part of the succession. They're along the fence line that ran up the hill at this point. And so it was a natural place removing these invasives to start planting the succession. So we wound up planting mostly oak trees last fall under these. So at this point, I went and talked to each of the kindergartens that were used to using this land, and we talked about why we were cutting some trees when they were taught to be respectful of the environment, and what invasives, how invasives interact with natives, and how natives are better for the environment in so many ways. And then I engaged them in planting oak trees that were donated actually from Lynn Blevins' land in Williston. And here you can see buckthorn that was recently removed, and we're planting oak trees under as an understory under the box elder. This is digging some of those trees. We again used recycled tubes to protect them from rabbits. We did some in makeshift ways. This one wound up with chicken wire because it couldn't fit in the tube. And you can see the school and the solar tracker behind in here, and that grove of sumac right there. So as you look up from one of the stump circles that go Camp the Hill, you start to see these tubes sprouting up where we have done plantings. Now, in the winter, this is a nice area to cross-country ski. This is on that land as well. This is a location where I'd love to see an overlook of the Allen Brook on that land. This is another Sustainable Williston volunteer, Marcy Cass. He's cutting invasive honeysuckle. It's not the season in the winter to cut the honeysuckle, but we wanted to do what U.S. Fish and Wildlife had suggested, which was in order to reduce the herbaceous growth before planting trees to mulch it with silage tarps, which we put on. With Reed's help, we cut up a downed box elder, one that had fallen on its own, and cut it into chunks that were so small that kindergartners could load them onto sleds and anchor the tarps once we put them out. I don't have pictures of the kindergartners doing this, but these tarps are out there now, and we'll leave them on for a year and then plant in those areas. This grove of poplar or aspen is with two mature trees, is on the south facing slope where it starts up, and you'll see that that's where I planted those white oak trees that we saw a minute ago. Oh yeah, and Melinda and I, well, basically other people were engaged as well. By the way, that's the fire station, which I hadn't shown this view before. This is a large group of 40-some environmental studies students at UVM who came and did a tour of our riparian work at this property and other places. And as we walked through, they helped pick up plastic tube refuse. I also just have fun with the kindergarten sometime. We took some of the sticks that were around and we made teepee I gave them some spruce boughs that I had, and they dragged them up the hill to put onto the teepee. And just Monday, we got these 70 bare root trees free from 350.org, Vermont350.org. And they're half planted yesterday. Half of them got planted yesterday. I wanted to mention too that the kindergartners are remaining involved. Here they are wheeling jugs of water out to location to help with watering the trees we've been transplanting. They're a riot. They put the jugs out beside the trees that are transplanted because they aren't yet doing the watering themselves, but they are having a good time. This is yesterday, and that's what our sycamores look like, and that's all the root that there is on them. But I was adventurous and wound up planting them, some sycamore in a line following the access road, because I think in 50 years that would be a beautiful edge to this forest. And this is Sustainable Williston volunteers, Danielle and two kids, planting more. We had some bare root sugar maples, so they're adding those. This is shagbark hickory, planted yesterday. This is white oak, additional white oak planted yesterday. And this, I was unaware of this. Let me switch to it. There we go. There is a project at UVM that lets you see aerial photographs from 1937 superimposed with 2018 satellite view. And what I noticed about this, let me scroll down here. So this is the fire station, and there's Allenbrook School. And so and you can see this is all pasture in 1937. As I scroll up though, what stood out to me is this, which is in a grid. And so it's an orchard. And I had seen old and newer fruit trees in that area that I was gauging were probably 150, 200 years old. And sure enough, in 1937, this looks like an old orchard because there's many missing trees and some have been replanted. So here we go. So as you see, as I drag it, where that orchard is, there are a few trees, and some of those are fruit trees. There's what that looks like. This is one of those old fruit trees. This is some kids exploring it. It had amazing bark beetle larva tracks to see. I'd like to also just point out that's the fire station in the background. This access to the brook is very available, and it's a nice environment. Right here, we're in amongst the riparian plantings. They've been eaten by beaver, but they're resprouting. So I also made a trail map, but I don't want to talk much about that except to say that there are on it, let me come over here. On the trail map, there are points of interest here, these red dots here. I thought it was important to eventually.
Chapin, we're not seeing your other screen. We're still seeing the low fidelity photo.
Huh, okay.
I think you might have shared the browser window.
Tell you what, I'm not going to worry about it. Thank you for letting me know. I'll go back to the low. So this is Native Americans, as you know, when they did archaeological exploration in the very early 2000s in anticipation of, or actually it was in the 1990s, in anticipation of the Cirque Highway. They found thousands of artifacts from 10,500 years ago, pre-bow and arrow, pre-pottery, mostly scrapers and spears. But this area was occupied by Native Americans that long ago. And so I thought it was important in the long run that we have some sort of educational component. And I'm imagining maybe doing it on, because this is an archaeologically sensitive site, maybe having platforms that are put on feet on that are heavy enough that they're not going to blow away, but they're just on the surface of the soil, but with plaques. And I was hoping we could do one there, one at the top, talking about the different things looking around, and one is an overlook to the riparian area. So I want to redo the trail idea. I worked on trails not because I wanted to make trails now, but because there's some de facto trails and existing trails. And I didn't want to plant trees somewhere that then later we would be digging them up for a trail. So we'll come back to that. So I want to go to, I see I probably have to go to screen share and switch to, oh, I can do
You
it
can
here.
switch to the screen instead of the window. Yep.
Well, I'm sorry for having this glitch. I'm going to stop and start sharing so that I can get to where I want to be. Here we go. So.
Chapin, if I might just interject,
Yes.
just to mention that the plan of the overall area with its different components was actually in part developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service,
Yes.
Partners for Fish and Wildlife.
Yes. Yes, that's in my notes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this document that you saw was developed with input from all those places, and the tarp that I showed you we spread was actually donated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And Katie Kane of Fish and Wildlife sat down and actually did the maps that I showed you. So this document is basically as of January of this year, summarizing all of that. And I made a plan for each of the areas, and most of the activity this year is in Area 3, Northern Hardwood Forest. Are you able to see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we are in this area right now a lot. But I wanted to, as I wrap up this part about this forest, I wanted to talk about here the suggested general goals. These are coming from me, is that to do a lot of planting these first few years. Whoops, there we go. And then by the end of 2030, I was hoping to have most of the planting complete except for maintenance planting for replanting or infilling. And the trails likely established. I do expect the plan to evolve from experience, public needs, public input in the changing environment. Also, once the trees are established, I'd like to work more on shrubs along the edge of the trails. And also, this is just sort of an accounting of what we planted last year. It was 9 red oak, 2 red maple, 4 sugar maple getting started last year. This year so far, actually, I'll go right to the totals to date. These are the numbers here: 9 red oak, 6 red maple, 31 sugar maple so far, 17 white oak, 8 hickory, 8 sycamore, and we have bare root, black willow, and bitternut hickory that I'll be adding with students later this week. The rest of this document is just a lot of notes, and so I wanted to stop at this moment in case there were questions or comments about this Tree Island Forest Park idea. It's students who have named it Tree Island, and I like that because it's in keeping with the fact it was a tree island back in the time of the Champlain Sea. And my only probably ask to you is, at the point that we want to do anything with trails or with educational like observation points, we're gonna have to go through permitting steps, and you'd have to be involved more at that point. Until then, I'm open to feedback and engagement as much as possible. This is at this point entirely a volunteer activity with a lot of support from Sustainable Williston and the schools. Any questions or comments, or should I move on?
I'll just say that overall, I love it.
Cool.
Gary
Jacob,
has a question.
I have a couple questions. One is, are there opportunities for other, like, for example, I've got some American chestnut and some that are blight resistant or tolerant at least, and some American elm that are tolerant of Dutch elm disease. It's part of a research project. And I'd love to put those in some small patches in this type of area. You know, it would have to be in a drier spot for the chestnut, but the elm could go in the riparian zone. Is that possible?
That would be perfect. And yes, one thing about this is we have different soil types and different, it's very dry on top of the hill,
Yeah.
and stony, and very clay-like on other places. And we have a lot of opportunities. And because there's a hill there, it's got south-facing as well as north-facing slopes. And so far,
Yeah.
we put the sugar maple on the north-facing because of climate change. We put the white oak on the south-facing, et cetera.
And it would provide a great learning opportunity for not only the students, but the community potentially. So that stuff, the chestnut's available this next spring, like a year from now, just for you to keep that in the back of your mind. And we could probably put 40 or 50 in there if you had room.
This has been very much like what's available and what
Yeah.
can we do. And 350.org, I got what trees they had that were not just the normal stuff that we could get, and those were for free.
Great. Thank you. I think it's a great thing you're doing.
I personally like transplanting with local genetics, partly because they're already doing well in this area, and partly because when I transplant, at least with the sugar maples, I can get big enough ones I don't have to protect the stems for years from deer browse.
Gary, is the elm, what's the schedule for the elm to be available?
Well, that's still up in the air because they have this called elm yellows disease, and they're not allowed to ship it into the state right now. We're trying to work with kind of taking care of the disease so that it can be shipped in. So it's still a little up in the air. I'm hopeful maybe a year from now we could get some of them, and that'll be quite a few of them as well that we're going to spread around with not only different communities but in different research sites as well.
Would these be stems that are like were raised and left over from the research project, or would you need would folks be like going in to like check on them and monitor them? I think both
Yeah.
would be fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah, they would be monitored. They're currently growing. I've had, this is the second growing season. I'm trying to get them big enough so that they'll be more likely to survive, like Capen was suggesting. So this is the second growing season. I have like 800 of them now, but that's for all of the research pieces that we have. And we would want to be able to go in and, you know, we'll label them initially and then map them out and then be able to go back once every year or two and look at their success rates. And
I think
there's
that's
even
actually super cool, because then like just telling the teachers about that, they could, if they wanted to, look up the project or invite someone into the classroom, be like, remember when we saw those little tags on the trees? Here's what it's all about. So that's neat.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. It'd be great.
Cool. And I've taken inventory of some of the riparian plantings from 10, 15 years ago, and our survival rate is, you know, around 50% on many of those plantings. Around the beavers, it's much lower than that. But I'm hoping to at least achieve that much. Transplanting has its own hazards, and you know, a lot of root damage in transplanting a tree from a forest. But I'm hoping that with better care, you know, giving a lot of attention to these trees over time, that we can keep the survival rate at least 50%. we'll have to see.
So
Yeah, ours would be potted plants, so they're success. I mean, we're in the 90% range with these
Yes.
plantings that we put in,
And-
90, 95.
And we have to include in that, though, rodent and deer browse issues.
Yeah, yeah, we would take care of that in terms of caging them and whatever's necessary.
Great.
I was sorry to hear about the oak up at Catamount when you got there.
Yeah.
And they were, so
Well-
that's a testament to, the deer browse
Yes.
at Catamount. And our next meeting for the Catamount Community Forest is Ethan's going to talk about putting a deer exclosure on the property to show what the deer browse is up there.
Okay. If I go on, I did want to talk about the Intervale Center. These are Intervale Center people, and they gave us a day of invasive management, which we did along the Allen Brook last summer. They're amazing. And this is some of their work. You can see how thick the invasive honeysuckle was in this area. And they just plowed through difficult stuff amazingly. And we may have them do more this year. They also, that's the fire station in the background. They also help scout out, assess and scout out more around that area. And Annalise Carrington is no longer with them, but she also gave advice, scouted and gave advice on the forest park idea. I wound up going out and volunteering and working at the Intervale just one day last September to learn how they do fascines and live stakes. They are able to do them ahead of time there because they have a refrigerated warehouse. And so this is a refrigerated warehouse. And this is Christine Kramer that leads their work there. So in November in the town meadow, I'm now on the town meadow. In November on the town hall meadow, this is Sustainable Williston volunteers cutting silky dogwood on site and digging a trench in a wet area. Give you an idea. And this is Christine Kramer. She came, I tried to pay her. She wouldn't accept money. She just came and volunteered to help advise us. Here we've made a fascine and we're putting it in a trench. And driving live stakes in to hold the fascine in place. And then we had stakes left over, and so a couple of us went and put them into some of the erosion stream bank at Talcott Road. It turns out when I went and looked at them this spring that the erosion rate along this curve is so great that most of them were completely scoured out, meaning that 12 to 18 inches of soil was removed by the spring flow. And yeah, I'm gonna stop there. I have to jump. We don't have time for this. So I just wanted to come here. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
I wanted to talk about spotted knapweed is another in the invasives on the town meadow. But boy, the pollinators really like it, and the goldfinch feast on it when it goes to seed. And if you stop mowing, it goes away. So we're not doing anything on that. However, our lovely poison parsnip does very well, especially whenever we mow. And so I continued for years now, pulling thousands of them from parts of the meadow just to see how well it helped. And it does not keep them out of the parts of the meadow that are mowed. It's very easy to get rid of them in the parts of the meadow that are not mown. I've also enlisted a lot of help. This is one of your commission members helping drag buckthorn. That I've been cutting buckthorn out of the hedgerows and around. And this is a UVM graduate student in environmental studies and law, Peter Malicki. He came out and did a work day with me. We're moving buckthorn sections around to make a sort of a walkway across some of the wet areas. He also had a trail camera. And this is a project by an Eagle Scout troop to give us a trailhead. This is Alec Blevins here and some of his troop members and their guide. And they wound up creating this trailhead for us there. The one thing I wanted to mention is that, and he made, let me see if this works. Can you see this?
Yes.
He made a,
He being the research student, you're saying?
yes, Peter Malicki using a lot of most of the photographs and stuff were things I gave him, but he made a story map of this, which is it tells a really nice story. So it's a nice way we can show information about this to the public. The one thing that I think I would like to alert you all to is that I know Melinda's planning to get the permits we need to make this trail more official. It has documentation and it's been in use for 2 years now by people that know about it. But this area here to the northeast of that is where we did that fascine example. And one of the uses for this land that keeps coming up is, could we be growing trees to use for the public works or for townspeople as sort of a nursery. And this area here has everything from very wet to very dry upland soil. And so one of the things that I'm floating and that I will be interested in the long run is whether we do that use as a sort of a silviculture use on the property. And I'm not, that's that work is ongoing. Now in the category of other things that I've done in the last 2 minutes here, Melinda sort of I think she wanted you to have a feel for some of the other silviculture or conservation related things. There was a Charlie Brown apple tree that the school wanted to get out of their garden and it was really doing poorly. So we dug it up and transported it and has a new home right on the edge of that the town hall meadow on the boundary between my house and the town hall. And I've since pruned it. We're going to try to revive it. This is Arbor Day. Just last week at Williston Central, I participated. I helped them choose where to plant their autumn blaze tree that was donated. And I also have some Swift House students I've been working with, and I'll talk to you about their project in a minute, but that for Arbor Day last Friday, we went out and removed plastic that was no longer helpful to trees and pulled the herbaceous growth away, and we basically did maintenance. And there were more students than what you see in this picture, but we got a lot of debris out of there. And it turns out that we now have all those stakes and reusable tubes down at Allenbrook, and I'm using them for the plantings we're doing right now. Also, I'm at the school, I'm taking out poplar trees that are shading their garden, and we're going to drill holes in the stumps and in the logs for native bee homes. I've also helped maintain the John Duncan garden. I wanted to talk then about these students. Let me come back here. I've been working for the semester with Swift House students who, for their project, wanted to look at water quality. And this is an aerial view. The school is just out of sight to the south here, and this is the rec path running behind the playing fields. And our boardwalk is here. Excuse me. So this is a rough map where we're marking areas that we found erosion. And the first one here is actually going to be involved in the 3-acre permit renewal for the school. And this is some of the erosion that's happening there. And I took this out and we measured. You can see we're measuring across the erosion there, and we're measuring the depth of it and characterizing it in a document. This is that running in the swale behind the school. And we also looked at where there were apparently fine culverts under the rec path, but if you go farther down, you'll find, let me come to here, you'll find that where it exits, it's been causing this erosion, significant erosion into the Allen Brook. And I'll just show you one more. This one is particularly bad. They armored it when they put it in, and it has dropped 8 to 10 feet at the head cut, and it's worked its way back to within 10 feet of the culvert. We did a site walk of this with Melinda, and we have one coming up in May with Becky Tharp. And I had the student study, what do we monitor and why? And here's our documentation of things that we found and so forth. And they're doing a slideshow.
Yeah, this is amazing work, Chapin. I mean, you've been doing so much with the students in so many different places. I know we're just past time.
Yeah. So, and actually, that's the end of my presentation. If I could, I just want to say I do sometimes help people with invasives. I worked with local residents who wanted the Hempstead property near Wilson Central to be part of the school, which didn't work out. Pruned crab apples, and yeah, I won't worry about that. For the town, and pruned apple trees for the school. And I'd like in the future to do invasive removal along the rec path with students, and also on this map right here next to that solar tracker on school property, be the change. Peter Malicki, the grad student, communicated with them, and they will give us a half-acre free pollinator garden. They'll do all the work for it and the signage and so forth. And I thought it'd be nice for it to be there where it could be accessed by people in the Forest Park, but it's still on school property.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that's it.
Thank you. I know we're past time, but does anyone have a question for Chapin?
I guess just like, what, if anything, do you need from us?
I just sort of keep following my nose and doing what people either are interested in or appears to be an opportunity. And I'm finding a great deal of joy in working with the students at school and with the community, particularly the Sustainable Williston volunteers who are sort of providing the labor behind some of what I've been doing. And I feel like it's just turned into a fun volunteer project to do basically conservation work in the town. And Melinda's been wonderful at giving me guidance whenever I needed it.
Thank you so much, Chapin.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you mind sending us the story map of your of the I guess what's that little place called, the town path?
We call it the town hall meadow.
Okay.
Yeah. So Laura, that was included in the group of story maps that I sent you from the Field Naturals program.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't get all the way through them yet. Thanks.
Yeah.
Were you asking a question, Kim?
No, I think I was just saying thank you or something else about how cool I think this. I don't know. No, I wasn't.
Thank-
Yeah, I agree. This was a pretty cool project. Thanks, Chapin, for
Cool.
Yeah,
volunteering
thank
all
you.
your time.
You're
on
welcome. Thanks for your time. And I put the link to that particular story map in the chat.
Oh, thanks so much.
Okey doke.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Chapin.
See y'all later.
Chapin.
Bye.
All right, and it looks like we have Reed Scott here. Hi, Reed. I'm Laura Meyer, Chair of the Conservation Commission. And if other commission members have questions or comments, please just introduce yourself to Reed before you ask.
Hello. So should I just go ahead and start describing what I'm trying to do?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't really have a formal presentation planned out, but my name is Reed Scott. I'm a PhD student at the University of Vermont. I'm studying under Brittany Mosier. We're still trying to figure out what exactly our lab is, but generally we're a conservation lab with a pretty broad range. Some people are just doing like amphibian road crossing, some people are doing modeling, some people are doing diseases. I'm kind of doing all of that at once. So I'm studying amphibian disease ecology. And so I'm interested in the town of Williston's Muddy Pond Park as a potential survey site. So I was asked to come here and talk briefly about what I'm planning on doing and answer any questions. So we're surveying for 2 amphibian diseases. One is called the amphibian chytrid fungus or chytridiomycosis, and the other is called rhinovirus. Chytridiomycosis is kind of the like globally known disease. It started spreading sometime in the 60s or earlier and now is everywhere. It infects roughly over 500 species globally. It's caused a bunch of extinctions. I don't remember how many off the top of my head. But it's able to cause extinctions because it's generalist pathogen, so it can spread to everything. And so it's bad. And there have been a couple cases reported in Vermont, but we're hoping that with the research that I'm doing, we can do a bit more of an in-depth survey of the state and try and get an idea of the condition that the amphibian community is in. And then we're doing the same thing for rotavirus, which is a bit more of a local disease. It's only really known in North America, Australia. And so that is a virus that is also kind of a generalist. It can, depending on the strain, infect amphibians, reptiles, or fish. But amphibians are kind of usually the worst off. They can suffer from mass mortality events. I don't know if you guys have ever had Luke Groff surveying in any of the town property, but he's a state wildlife biologist who also is doing some surveying for antivirus. And so, yeah, we're trying to kind of track down, quote unquote, both of these diseases. And at the base level, just try and get an idea of where they are in Vermont. But then also we have a couple of questions that we're trying to ask about their dynamics. So I'm particularly interested in how biodiversity impacts these diseases, because there's an idea amongst biologists and ecologists that as diversity of a system goes up, disease prevalence will go down because you have more of these hosts that may be worse at hosting the disease. So it's an indicator that biodiversity, while good in general, may also be good specifically for preventing disease spread. And so we're trying to look at a couple different places across Vermont and measure their biodiversity, and then also for a couple of species, test them to see whether or not these diseases are present. And so Mud Pond is one of the areas that I'm interested in because It looks like a good permanent pond from my understanding, and it's relatively close. And so I'm trying to go out there and sample. And so sampling for me would look like a couple different things. We would be going out and basically walking around Mud Pond looking for what species we see as adults. And then we would be doing what's called dip net surveys, kind of similar to the dip nets that are used for fishing, if you've ever used those, to collect tadpoles and then adults of certain other species, which is just another way of measuring biodiversity. And then specifically for green frogs, because they're considered kind of a good sentinel species and they're very common in Vermont, we would be catching them and then collecting skin swabs. So taking swabs, and the way I've been describing it is the same way you do a COVID test, just we're doing it on their skin instead of their nostrils. And then afterwards, we'd be sending them off to, sending off the swabs, not the frogs, sending off the swabs to get tested and see if the diseases are present at these certain sites. And yeah, so that is a quick rundown of what I'm trying to do. And I'm just looking for permission from sites so that I can go out and sample and test for these.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Reed?
So I just have a question. You referenced on the page there, Oak Hill Pond. And is that the same as Mud Pond, or is that Melinda May, is that Isham's Pond? Is that what that was?
Yeah.
referring to?
So this is where Google and GIS got a little confusing for me. So I was given like a state data layer for ArcGIS with all of the recognized ponds and lakes in the state. And when I look it up on ArcGIS, it's marked as Oak Hill Park. But then when I look it up in Google, it's the Mud Pond Country Park, and it's called Mud Pond on there, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's correct.
So it's
Okay.
just the Mud Pond, right? Not Isham's. Okay. All right.
So
Yes.
just as a point of clarification, it's not the country park, it's the conservation area that you're going to be looking at. Is that correct? The area that surrounds Mud Pond?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
I was not aware that those two are different, but I do know that, yes, it is the Mud Pond Conservation Area.
Mhm.
The country park is the area that's to the east of South Road, and the conservation area is to the west of
Okay.
South Road.
Okay, I'm looking at Google Maps now and I see it. So
Okay.
yes, I would be looking at the Mud Pond Conservation Area.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I know I've been out there a few times, and that's where that little stadium area is, where you can sit, and it's not a great access to get out to the pond itself. It's kind of an unofficial trail. As you get out there, you'll see, but yeah, it'll be, so you want to get out into the pond to find those frogs.
Yes, the goal would be to get out, which this would definitely not be the first site that will have some difficult access. And just, yeah, be walking along the pond edge to look for frogs, basically.
Mhm. Reed, I have a question. How, I know a lot of diseases that have caused many amphibians to go extinct are brought in by people that just are unawares that as they travel from place to place, they're moving diseases around. And how, as you go from one study site to the next, do you take precautions, and do you rinse your shoes? Are there precautions you need to take to prevent, giving something at one pond in one town to the salamanders or frogs in our pond?
Yes, that is a great question. That absolutely happens. I'm pretty sure there have been methods papers outlining what you should do, which we are going by. So yes, we do disinfect to make sure that we don't spread diseases to other ponds, because that is the last thing that I want to be doing as a disease ecologist. And so basically, we're working out what exactly that looks like, just logistically, but it will either be essentially we would use a spray bottle full of bleach water to rinse down all of our equipment, which bleach has been shown to kill off chytrid and ranavirus. Or we would have basically like a bleach pool set up at our main lab site, and we would just stop there between ponds. But that's maybe not as efficient, given that a lot of my ponds are going to be like relatively close to one another. So it wouldn't make much sense to drive there, clean up, and then drive back out. But yes, we do have disinfectant protocols.
I don't have
Um,
any questions. I just wanted to say that it sounds like an excellent research use of the conservation area.
Does everyone agree that Reed has permission to go ahead and do his studies at Mud Pond?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Yep.
That's great. And Reed, can you share your results with us?
Yes, absolutely. That is something that has been universally asked by every site. And there's one site that has not asked, but I'm more than happy to share the results of what species I find. And then probably a bit later, I think it would probably be important to let towns and other managers know whether or not their sites have diseases on them. So barring any like issues with the university and data rights, I would be happy to share the information to let you know if your conservation area has ranavirus or chytrid.
Thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if there were any other questions.
Okay, hearing none, Reed, good luck and have fun out there.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope the rest of the meeting goes well. And maybe I'll see some of you out there.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for
Bye.
coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, we're pretty much right on time to talk about conservation strategies for forests and wildlife. And this was quite the document to read through. And Melinda, I wanted to ask you, especially since you probably have thoughts about some strategies that Williston might be able to use but hasn't yet. Was there anything that stood out for you as a conservation planner that a strategy that we haven't used or should consider?
Sure. So, one thing that they talk about in here is community values mapping. And I don't believe that has been done in Williston, and that could be a valuable strategy. I'm thinking, maybe it could be done in conjunction with the next town plan update. It's a way to kind of, you have a community meeting and you create some maps that are basically identical, and you divide the meeting up into groups, and people literally just mark on the map their particular areas that are valuable to them, and they talk about what those values are. then basically what results out of that is this, you bring the groups together and you overlay all of the, all of the areas of value, and you come up with this sort of, basically this community values mapping, which can, some other communities have used this. I think maybe Waitsfield did this, or Warren, I can't remember, but I think it could be valuable just as a way of kind of getting community input and community support into, sort of a different way to prioritize conservation, prioritize parcels for conservation than the more, sort of technical way of using GIS. But this is the way that you can actually use community input in a meaningful way to support conservation efforts. So that was one thing. And then another thing is just, I don't think that there's been, well, maybe this is true. I don't know, because, I don't know if before I came here, there was more effort to kind of, involve private landowners in, not different from like conservation easements, but more like kind of supporting private stewardship without actually using formal conservation easements, but kind of doing outreach to private landowners that, private landowners of large lots, particularly large forested lots, and sort of encouraging good stewardship of those lands, and particularly those landowners who are not eligible to enroll in current use, like who have properties that might be less than the minimum acreage where they could enroll in current use, but nonetheless could be valuable sites for stewardship. So, just finding ways to engage with those landowners. So those are a couple of areas that I thought could be ways, it could be strategies to use.
Thank you. Any questions for Melinda?
Or any ideas of your own based on this document, like of I thought there were a lot of pretty interesting, I think we talked about, sort of the more regulatory areas, but these are really, sort of, you get further down in this document. Oh yeah, so this, I think it also mentions the community. Yeah, but basically, I think there's a lot of good material in here to work from, and so if you all have any thoughts about how different strategies that could be used to
Wanda, this I've been scrolling through this as you've been talking, and it definitely looks like a really nice tool. It's a lot to digest in one sitting.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm wondering if maybe we can sort of take it apart over a couple of meeting agendas or something and focus on, pick one section that we could focus on and talk about how we might use that information here in Williston, and do that over, for a few different components of this report or document, do that over a few different agendas.
Yeah, there is a lot in here for sure. And this is all regulatory, and I guess what we're talking about is more non-regulatory aspects. I don't know if the last part of this is all regulatory. I guess it appears that way, but So is that kind of what the way you're leaning towards, just like exploring some of these non-regulatory strategies, or what?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking both non-regulatory and looking at regulatory tools and
Mhm.
yeah, and talking about what we can recommend to the town, as well, whether it's through bylaws updates or whatever seems relevant.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
was this document put together by a series of state of Vermont agencies?
I
Just fishing
think it
around
was, yeah, it was
NRC.
the NRC in collaboration with
Lots of
with
different-
different agencies, and also regional planning commissions were involved. So the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Vermont Land Trust. Yeah, so you can see all the different parties that were involved in the creation of this document.
Have we heard back from Jens yet about our all the work that we've been doing? He was going to look over the final draft or a draft.
No, I haven't heard back from him yet. I should probably get in touch with him just to see if he's looked at this.
Great, but yeah, a lot of this could intertwine with, how that report reads.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just a reminder that a lot of these partners, and Melinda would know who is going to be there, but they are going to be talking about strategies at the 5-Town Conservation Partnership meeting on May 25th. So if people can go to that, or if we can, or watch the recording afterward, because those were the 3 things we wanted to do. Melinda presented some ways to conserve land. We have this document, and then we wanted to invite partners to, give us advice on how to, different strategies for conserving land, or helping to preserve land by talking to landowners. So I just wanted to remind you of that, and I'll try to remember to send out the link to that as May 25th gets closer, if people are interested.
And I could also ask if the meeting can be recorded. I'm sure they can probably record it, and then I can send out a link to the recording for folks that can't make the meeting itself. And I can also, I'm planning on attending the meeting, so I can, I'll take notes and provide some information to the commission about the, points that were discussed.
That would be great, because I know I'll be out of town. So it'd be good to have a recording.
Mhm.
Melinda, are you continuing on being a member of that partnership?
No, I won't be. So the next conservation planner will take on that role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric. It might be beneficial to pick out sections of this to talk about in more detail, rather than at a skim level.
Oops, Laura's talking. You're muted, Laura.
Sorry. Maybe we can start with one of the ones that Melinda mentioned, how to involve private landowners and read that section.
Sure.
Yeah, just looking at the table of contents, it just seems like there's maybe not all of it, but a lot of it certainly could be applicable here in Williston. And I think it'd be worth our time to take a deeper dive into several of these sections, both in the non-regulatory and regulatory tools, components of the document.
All right.
Yeah, and if you'd like, I can, at least as a starting point, try to tease out the different areas of focus and maybe come up with a plan for how you might look at each of those areas, or,
That would be very helpful.
mhm. And maybe Laura, maybe we can discuss it at the next time we chat. I can come up with that beforehand. We can chat about how to include that in future agendas.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Okay.
I pictured us going through that whole document and it being 9:30.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I'm glad that we decided to break it up.
Okay.
Melinda, for Green Up Day, since I think I signed up for a 10 o'clock spot, I was going to ask you if you needed help taking anything to the green.
I don't think so. I think we're gonna probably bring everything over at around 8. And we have a student volunteer helping us with setup, so that's good. And I guess as far as like what kinds of things you wanted to have there, of course, there's just the information about trails. So there are some trail brochures that we can bring over there to have. I thought of creating some, actually, I found some materials from, let me just see if I can share those, from the Department of Forest Parks and Recs, that I thought would be good. There's this one poster, kind of like a Leave No Trace Responsible Trail Usage poster that they came up with, that we could print out and just post there, just have like to display with maybe a link. And let me just see if I can find that for you and quickly show it to you. Let's see. I can find that. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I always find that, I don't know whether the space would suit it, and also being outdoors, but I always find that maps get people talking.
Yeah.
So
here it
having some sort of map of our, maybe even just a map of our parks and conservation areas, gives people an idea of where they are in a town and gets them talking about conservation of town resources.
Yeah. So I'm going to share what I found here. I thought this was nice. So maybe that could just be printed up kind of large and just posted, just to kind of have a message there. And then, then along with that, maybe I could also put up a townwide map of the trails. And maybe have a few paper copies of brochures. We don't really have a lot of those at the moment, but just have a few available in case anybody wants to pick it up. Yeah. I think I also, I may have created a version with like a QR code up here with a link to our trail page on the website. And this is not that version, but I saved it somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm
if
a
you
little
could put the
disorganized.
QR code
Yeah.
on it, it would help folks take it with them. I know a lot
Yeah.
of people don't like to take physical brochures, but they do want to look at the information later. So
Right.
helping them get to the website would be good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm maybe I can find it. I feel like I put it in the Green Update folder.
Melinda, can I ask you a quick question?
No.
I can't see the writing on this, but is there any mention in there about how to deal with dogs?
Oh, hold on a second. There is something I wanted to show you.
Great.
There isn't, not specifically. No, I don't think specifically, but this is, I knew there was something that I made. Do you all see this
Yeah.
other window? Okay. I knew there was something that I did before I went on vacation. So this is just sort of a general poster that has like QR codes to the various sections on the website.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the protected open space page is the one that I was just looking at to see if which map or maps might be interesting, but that would get them there too.
Yeah, yep. And then lastly, I put at the bottom the link to the story maps that the UVM students did.
Is this up on the town website now or not yet? Or
No,
were you-
I'm gonna post it on Green Up Day. I'm just gonna put a poster of it there, and that way people can just come in and look at this.
Melinda, were any of those QR codes a link to our part of the annual report that's in the town report?
I did not. I didn't put that up there.
Yeah, let me see what's out there.
I'm just thinking that might be, this is a really neat way to direct people to different pieces of what we do. And if you
Right.
have space on there, maybe one more code would be to, read about what Conservation Commission does or did last year or something. And I think that I guess I was looking for something just for me to have even when I'm sitting at that table on Saturday to use as a guide for me.
Yeah.
Talk to people about what we do, generally speaking. And these 6 that are on the screen now are nice. And then I think maybe a link to the annual report is our part of the annual report that kind of provides a nice summary of what we do in one package or 2 pages or whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe what I can do is if I squish all this stuff, maybe like at the very top, I can put another one just saying, see the annual report for, or see the Conservation Commission annual report for just a summary of the activities over the last year or something like that at the very top.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not finding the 2021 report on the website right now.
Yeah, it may not be up there yet. I don't know. I'm
I found
not sure
2020.
why, but yeah. Okay. Okay, well,
Melinda, this might also be a good time to put up that little one sheet page you did for the Catamount Community Forest. That might be something to put there for the public.
well, that will be there for the Catamount tables part of the,
Great.
so Catamount is doing its own table, Catamount
Oh, are they?
Forest.
Oh, good, because I knew
I thought-
couldn't make it, yeah.
Yeah. So at the last meeting, we discussed having a Catamount Community Forest representation. So I will be posting that for that.
Okay, and did one of the
Yeah.
members, somebody's gonna be there?
I don't know.
Don't know, okay, so it just might
No.
just be there, it's for information, okay.
Yep. Okay,
Thanks for putting that together, Melinda.
sure.
Melinda, I lost track of the sign up sheet. Do you have open hours that need people?
Let me see. Did I? Oh, I'm not sure. I could try and check.
So, yeah, I've got it open now. There's 4 slots, and Laura and I have the first 2 slots, and then the second 2 slots are still open. That's from 12 to 1 and 1 to 2 on Saturday.
Okay.
There's the one that I'll give you the link that you can post.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, 12 to 2 is open if anybody wants to come.
Let's see.
Where is it? What's the link to the sign up sheet?
Let me just, I'm going to post it in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, I guess Eric already did that. Thanks.
Well, that just goes to you. I can't share it to
Oh.
everybody.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
only post to you.
All right. I just posted it. Okay.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is somebody going to have out the information about the development review process in Williston and the different bodies and their roles?
I am not sure. I can ask planning staff whether, I am at, yeah, that's a good idea. And I can propose that to the other planning staff.
Yeah, if planning commission representation could
Mhm.
show that, or the DRB, that would be, you can never do enough outreach about how to get involved at the right points in the process.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
just so I'm clear, this is at the Village Green, which is the lawn space by the gazebo.
Yeah. You'll see a big tent there.
Okay.
Yeah, Melinda, I can't I can't commit to signing up for one of those slots because I'll be on duty with my mom, but there's a chance
Okay.
that I'll be able to come over for a while, so it will just be a bonus if I make it by.
Okay. Sounds great.
Melinda, do the maps come up, like, for example, when you go to significant wildlife habitat, does our work with the Yens come up?
I think I just linked to the story map. that has the
Story map.
map embedded into it.
Okay, great. Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Yeah. So the last thing on the agenda, I guess I was just going to give you an update about the my replacement, replacing my position as conservation planner. Unfortunately, I don't really have an update because I just got back from vacation, and so all I can say is that recruitment is proceeding, and hopefully it'll, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But I'll be obviously working with whoever comes in to transition them into the role, and that's going to take place over the next few months or so.
Mhm.
So and also just I want to try to also manage expectations for just over the next few months. It's going to be a process with me transitioning out and a new person transitioning in, and so the capacity to take on new stuff will be fairly limited. So just to kind of let you know.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's also summer. We should make it as easy on you and easy on us as we can.
Very true.
Mm.
And does anybody have any
Yeah.
questions about that?
I guess I don't have any questions. I'm just going to offer congratulations to you on your transition to the new role. That sounds like a great opportunity. And
Thank you.
best of luck to the town in filling the new position from the basic program perspective. We've been filling a couple of positions lately, and we've never had any real trouble. We didn't really have a lot of trouble this past time, but the number of applications we received was significantly lower than we have had in the past. So yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say congratulations too, and I just wondered, so the biggest project that was happening was with Jens doing that map. But was there any other thing that was coming up that was a big project that was looming?
Well, so there could be, I don't know about this yet, but there could be potentially a specific plan with the Glazer project that could, an application could come in or not. And we'll have to just wait and see on that. But that's going to be, a significant project that certainly, Conservation Commission input will be needed there. But as far as the project with Jens, I guess, so at the very least, you have a new map that is now, done, that can, if nothing else, go into the next town plan update. If you wanted to do more with that, I think we're in the process of drafting amendments to the Chapter 27 regulations. You could still work on that, but it may be kind of a slow process. It has been a slow process, and partially that's due to the fact that the Planning Commission has been completely consumed with other bylaw amendments, including the Taft Corners form-based code and official map. And next on their docket will be looking at the village bylaws. So they're pretty consumed, and their agendas are pretty stacked right now. So as far as so that's limiting in terms of the process of new amendments going forward, and that that we may need to wait a while for the Planning Commission to weigh in on any proposed draft for regulations. So this is part of managing expectations, but at the very least, I think that there's been a lot of work that's gone into creation of a new significant wildlife habitat map. And even if it takes a while for that to be adopted as an amendment to the bylaw regulations, at the very least, it can go into the next town plan, which is, it's going to process on the next town plan update is going to start actually pretty soon, probably this summer and next fall. We're going to start working on that.
And did I happen to see, just another subject, did I see Ann O'Day out the other day with a clipboard? Is she back on the?
She is back on. She's started, she's actually been posting no hunting, re-upping the no hunting signs around the properties. She has discovered that it's a lot easier to do during leaf off. So she's getting that done right away in the spring, which I think is a great idea. So, yep.
That's great.
Would would this be too much to ask her to do, but would she be interested or willing to kind of just be the coordinator for the Adopt a Trail program?
Yeah, that's the idea. And I think she will be doing that this year.
Okay,
and
yeah, maybe just send out a notice
yeah,
to the participants. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, we have 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any other business that or something that they want to bring up? All right, well, I think we can adjourn 5 minutes early then.
I just have one quick question for Carl. When's your last day going to be, Carl?
Well, it'll be our last meeting in May, whenever that is.
Oh, wow. So only one more then, huh?
Well,
Or is
no.
it
No,
June?
the last meeting in June. not
Oh,
May.
June. Okay.
Yeah, so 3 more.
3 more meetings, yeah.
So
Thank you.
Melinda, that is also when we turn over chair and elect a new vice chair, correct?
Yeah, right.
All right. Okay,
Time flies when you're having fun, Laura.
yeah. I know. And Terry, you should be doing that also. So I guess Pat will become the new chair at
At Catamount. Yeah, great.
Catamount.
And
I
that's in
mean,
June.
it's not, so it's not necessarily a given that the vice chair becomes chair and the chair has to step down. It's just, it's sort of a practice that this body has engaged in, but it's not required. And, so just to make a note of that. And, sometimes chairs have continued to serve for more than 1 year, and sometimes the vice chair doesn't necessarily want to be chair and so on. So just keep that in mind. It's not like necessarily a rigid protocol, but, it can be flexible.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to officially adjourn the meeting. Everybody have
Bye,
a
everyone.
great day and weekend.
Take
All right.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.